The parade ground was silent in the way only military silence exists, thick, disciplined, and heavy with expectation. Nearly 1,000 troops stood in formation beneath the unforgiving midday sun, boots aligned, eyes forward, uniforms pressed sharp enough to cut. This was meant to be a routine address, another speech, another reminder of rank, order, and obedience. No one expected history to be made. She stood among them in combat fatigues, posture steady, face unreadable. Lieutenant Mara Cole, though most only knew her as Cole, had learned long ago how to disappear into formation when needed. Years of elite training had taught her when to be visible and when to become invisible. Today she did neither. Something in the air felt wrong. The visiting Admiral arrived flanked by senior officers, his presence commanding immediate attention. Medals caught the sunlight, glittering with authority. He began to speak about discipline, about respect, about tradition. His words were polished, practiced, but his eyes wandered, too long, too deliberate, until they landed on her. "Step forward," he ordered sharply. A ripple moved through the ranks. Cole stepped out, boots striking the ground with calm precision. She met his gaze without flinching. She had faced live fire in hostile territory, held her breath underwater while enemy patrols passed overhead, carried wounded teammates through chaos. A stare did not scare her. The Admiral circled her slowly, like an inspector searching for a flaw. His voice dropped, the microphone forgotten. What he said next wasn't meant for the crowd, but it was loud enough for those closest to hear. Disrespectful, demeaning, a remark that reduced years of sacrifice to a cruel joke. Cole's jaw tightened. She remained silent. She had endured worse in training, worse on missions. Silence had often been survival. Then it happened. The Admiral's hand struck her, sharp, sudden, meant to humiliate rather than injure. A slap, delivered with the confidence of someone who believed rank was armor. For half a second, the world froze. Dust hung in the air. 1,000 soldiers stopped breathing, and then instinct took over. Years of conditioning surged forward. Not anger, not ego, but reflex, controlled, precise, final. Cole pivoted, her movement so fast it barely registered. Her strike was clean, powerful, executed with the efficiency drilled into her bones by some of the toughest instructors on Earth. The Admiral hit the ground hard. The sound echoed across the parade field like a gunshot. Gasps rippled through the formation. Some soldiers stared in shock. Others couldn't look away. Officers rushed forward, shouting commands that tangled over one another. No one had prepared for this moment. No manual covered it. Cole stood still, her fist slowly unclenched. Her breathing remained even. She did not run. She did not apologize. She simply looked down at the man on the ground and spoke, quietly, clearly, and loud enough for everyone to hear. "Don't forget," she said, voice steady as steel, "I'm a Navy SEAL." The words carried farther than any microphone ever could. In that instant, she knew everything would change. Courts, martial, headlines. Whispers, consequences she couldn't yet imagine. But she also knew something else, something deeper. She had not broken discipline. She had defended it. As military police escorted her away, the formation remained locked in place, but something had shifted. For the first time, many of them truly saw her, not just as a soldier, not just as a woman in uniform, but as a warrior who refused to be less than what she had earned the right to be. Behind the controlled chaos, memories surfaced unbidden. Grueling nights in freezing water, bruised ribs wrapped in tape, letters written but never sent, the quiet promise she had made to herself the day she earned her trident. No one would ever take this from me. This was only the beginning. What the world would later call an incident was, for her, a line drawn in the dust, a moment where silence ended, a moment where strength spoke without permission. And as she disappeared through the gates, one truth followed her like a shadow. Every mission has a story, and hers had just begun. Long before the parade ground, before the trident pinned over her heart, before the world learned her name for a single violent moment, there was a girl who stood at the edge of an ordinary life and chose the harder path. Mara grew up in a quiet town where days passed gently and dreams were supposed to be safe. Her father worked long hours, her mother worried in silence, and expectations were simple: school, stability, a future that didn't involve danger. But even as a child, Mara felt out of place in softness. She wasn't reckless, she was purposeful. When other kids played games, she tested limits. When others avoided discomfort, she leaned into it. She learned early that strength wasn't loud. It was showing up when no one was watching. The first time she saw a documentary about Special Operations Forces, something shifted inside her. It wasn't the weapons or the glory that caught her attention. It was the discipline, the teamwork, the unspoken trust. Men and women operating in the shadows, sacrificing recognition for results, protecting people who would never know their names. That night, she couldn't sleep. The idea stayed with her through high school, through relationships that didn't last because she was always too intense. Through teachers who told her she was capable of more realistic goals. She heard it all. You're a woman. It's dangerous. Choose something safer. But safety had never been her measure of a life well lived. The day she told her family she was enlisting, the room fell silent. Her mother cried quietly, not out of anger, but fear. Her father nodded once, slowly, the way men do when they understand something they don't fully agree with. No one tried to stop her. That almost made it harder. The night before she left, Mara sat alone on her bed, packing and unpacking the same duffel bag. She held a pair of dog tags, not issued yet, just symbolic, and wondered who she would become once she crossed that line. She knew one thing for certain: the girl she was would not survive the journey unchanged. Boot camp was a shock, even for someone who thought she was prepared. Sleep deprivation stripped away politeness. Pain exposed doubt. The smallest mistakes were punished, not out of cruelty, but to test resolve. She learned quickly that physical strength was only part of the equation. Mental endurance, staying calm while being screamed at, staying focused while exhausted, was the real battlefield. And then there was isolation. Being one of the few women meant always being seen, always being judged. If she failed, it wasn't just her failure. If she succeeded, it was dismissed as luck. She learned to carry that weight silently. Complaining earned nothing. Performance earned survival. Some nights, after lights out, she stared at the ceiling and questioned herself. Why am I here? The answer wasn't always clear, but quitting was never an option she allowed to fully form. Training escalated, selection loomed. By the time she reached the pipeline that would decide whether she belonged among the elite, she had already lost friends, some to injuries, some to doubt, some to the realization that wanting something wasn't the same as enduring it. The ocean became her enemy and her teacher. Cold water bit into her bones, muscles screamed. Time stretched endlessly during evolution after evolution designed to break her. She broke, just not the way they expected. She learned how to compartmentalize pain, how to focus on the next breath, the next step, the next command. She learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was functioning despite it. When instructors questioned her presence, she didn't argue. She performed, and slowly resistance turned into respect. The day she earned her place, standing soaked, bruised, barely upright, the trident felt heavier than metal. It carried every sacrifice, every doubt, every tear swallowed in silence. She didn't cry. She simply closed her eyes and breathed. That was the moment she stopped proving herself to others. She had proven herself to herself. What no one saw was the cost, the birthdays missed, the relationships left behind, the growing distance between who she was and who she could never be again. The uniform didn't erase her emotions. It taught her how to carry them quietly. Years later, on that parade ground, when a hand struck her face, it wasn't just a reaction born of training. It was the weight of every mile run, every insult endured, every sacrifice made long before anyone was watching. Before the uniform, she was a girl with a choice. After it, she was a warrior who would not be diminished. Pain has a sound. It's the dull thud of a body hitting the ground, the rasp of breath pulled through burning lungs, the quiet, dangerous whisper in your head that says stop. Mara learned that sound early. By the time she entered advanced training, weakness was no longer physical. It was mental. The body adapts, muscles harden. Skin toughens, but the mind is where they aim to break you. Training days blurred into nights with no clear beginning or end. Sleep came in fragments, stolen in minutes, never hours. Orders were barked without warning. Mistakes were punished immediately, publicly, not because they hated her, but because real combat would be worse. The rain never seemed to stop. Mud clung to her uniform like a second skin as she crawled beneath live wire, explosions cracking the air above her. Her arms shook from exhaustion, fingers numb, but stopping was not an option. Instructors loomed in the background, faceless in the darkness, their voices cutting through the chaos. Move, faster. Every cell in her body screamed. Her lungs felt too small. Her heart hammered like it might burst. Still, she moved, because this wasn't about passing. It was about earning the right to stand beside warriors who would one day trust her with their lives. There were moments, quiet, dangerous moments, when doubt crept in. Watching others drop out one by one, dragged away with injuries or hollow stares, she wondered if she was being slowly ground down to nothing. She missed warmth, she missed softness, she missed the version of herself that didn't measure days in pain. But then came the water, cold, endless, merciless. Hours in the ocean stripped away all illusions. The cold cut deeper than knives, settling into bone. Her teeth chattered uncontrollably, muscles cramped without warning. The instructors watched closely, not for strength, but for panic. Panic was the real enemy. She focused on her breathing. Inhale, exhale, one more minute. When a teammate began to falter, she didn't hesitate. She locked arms, lending strength where hers was already fading. That was the unspoken rule. We survive together or not at all. In that moment, she understood something vital. This wasn't about being the strongest person in the water. It was about refusing to abandon anyone. Land training was no mercy either. Long, distance runs under crushing heat left her vision swimming. Heavy packs dug into her shoulders until skin split and bled. Her legs moved on instinct when her mind begged her to stop. She learned how to shut off emotion mid-stride, to become mechanical when necessary. At night, when the noise finally faded, she lay awake staring into darkness. Her body throbbed, bruises bloomed in shades of purple and yellow, hands trembled with exhaustion. Sometimes tears came, silent, angry tears that soaked into her pillow before dawn. No one saw them, and that was the point. Being one of the few women meant there was no room for weakness. Every stumble felt magnified, every success questioned. She carried that pressure without complaint, knowing that excellence was her only shield. Gradually, something changed. Pain stopped being an enemy and became information. Fear turned into focus. She learned how to read her limits and how to push past the ones that mattered. Instructors began to watch her differently. Less skepticism, more calculation. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was adapting. The final evaluations came without ceremony. Just another day, another test, another chance to fail. She performed each task with quiet precision, conserving energy, trusting her training. When it was over, No one congratulated her. They didn't need to. She had been forged. The kind of strength she gained couldn't be seen in muscles or medals. It lived in her posture, her stillness, the calm in her eyes when chaos erupted. She had learned to endure without becoming numb, to carry pain without letting it define her. Years later, when a crowd watched her strike down a man who believed rank made him untouchable, they saw violence. What they didn't see was the fire that had shaped her long before that moment. Every crawl through mud, every frozen hour in the water, every night she chose not to quit. That was the real blow.